So anyway, wanting to know more about humans and how they think and reason, I'm using old language, I'd call a 6-year-old boy or girl and say, draw a picture of a human being. At 6, this is generally what I got. Not exactly like this, but something like this. I'm sure you've seen that. Then I would ask them to, is there anything you can add to that picture? And they would add something like this. And I'd say,
he's huge.
And I'd ask, is there anything else you can add? And they draw a circle with lines coming out of it. And that would be as far as I'd go with them to check the uniformity of response. It's very uniform. Because I've seen it. Sure, most of you have seen that. It's not telepathy. Then the teacher would give them a crayon and they'd color it. And the teacher would hang it up, and I would try to stop the teacher from hanging it up. She said, well, they're children, they made these drawings, and just want to hang them up, show what they're doing. So I said, why don't you hang up K-A-T? I suppose cat with a K. Well, then we'd lose communication. So I said, this is not right. If you hang that up, you freeze the kid at that level. So I called the kid over, and I say, how does this guy get in that door? I asked the kid, and the kid says right away, I made him too big. I said, does the guy eat anything? Looks like he never ate anything in his life. So right away, the kid would add mass, not very good. You know, kind of like that. He'd add mass to the drawing. And I say to the kid, these are the way most children draw. I said, how would you like to be able to draw like an adult right away? Good drawings. He says, I'm only 6 years old. Don't worry about that. Because artists don't know how to communicate. I guess I've been drawing for years. It's kind of a gift or talent. All those words, gifted, talent, they're all bullshit words. Like instinct is a bullshit word. How does it work? Where does it come from? The artist doesn't know precisely how to tell people how to draw. So I say to the kid, do you know a little bit about the alphabet? They say yes. Do you know what the letter T looks like? Yes. If they know that, I have them draw a, then take these home with you. I have them draw a big T, like that. And I make sure that the top of the T doesn't lean this way or that way. I tell them, I don't use terms like right angles. I say these are distorted T's. This is, and they usually pick this one. Once they draw the T, I say, do you know what an almond is? The kid says, those kids that do, most of them do. I say, I draw 3 things. Which looks like an almond? This, or this? They usually pick this. And I say, you draw 1 almond here, very light, and an almond on the side of that, and 1 touching it here. Then erase the middle almond. 1 almond above, you draw a half round. I'll work upside down. What's this? The kid said, that's a letter V. What's this? It's a V upside down. Well, whatever this distance is, from here to here, you draw a V upside down. What's this? The kid says, that looks like a lot of birds. He's flying. You draw a flying birdie 1 peach pit down, with the wings no greater than the center of the peach pit. Connect another bird to that and a half round beneath that. And what's this? The kid says, that's a heart. You draw half a heart from the top of the eyebrow to the bottom of the nose. Anyway, the kid moves from that crap over to this. In other words, you use a different way. You use whatever language you have to use. And I can teach anyone to draw in less than 20 minutes the basics of drawing. It's not an inborn gift. The artist has something in mind when he sits down. He doesn't know what it is. It's like asking a normal person, when did you learn to speak? He says, Saturday morning, February. No, first he went, da, 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 da. And maybe some guy, he banged his knee and went, oh. And banged his elbow, and he ate something. And language is an extrapolation of noises made over a long period of time. Nobody sat down and says, I got to invent a way to communicate. That may work today, but nobody invents anything. I also asked Osceola's great-grandson where the bow and arrow came from. He said his grandfather's grandfather told him that the Indians used to cut a bear skin. It was a bad drawing of a bear skin. And they put it out in the sun to dry after they skinned the bear. And when they came back, it was half the size. And that bothered them. So they built a frame around the bear skin, and they tied leather strips to it to keep it from shrinking too much. So anybody can't see that? Okay. Well, when you cut the leather strips, they use natural glass called obsidian, and they cut the strips. But when you cut a strip of leather, that too shrinks. It becomes about half the size and 3 times as fat. And that bothered them, bothered the Indians. So the Indians tied that strip of leather to a piece of wood, any piece of wood they could grab. And if it was thick enough, it didn't shrink as much. But if it was too thin, they had the bow. I don't know if you understand that. The bow is the result of shrinking leather and a branch thick enough, thin enough, not to support that. So the branch is pulled by the shrinking leather. And the first Indian picked it went bang, and made a smaller one, bing, the heart. So nobody ever sat down and invented the bow and arrow. The schools have got it ass backward. They show you great inventors, Edison invented the electric light. They don't tell you all the people who went before that. They tell you Leonardo da Vinci was ahead of his time. But they don't tell you the people he associated with. Talked of gears and levers, and they never show you that. So it puts a mystery. It puts a mystery around invention. They think certain people are naturally gifted. Some are lazy, some are productive. All that's bullshit. It isn't so. I'm looking for my glass of water.
It's here, we moved it.
Blue one.
Thank you.
It's the only blue one.
Am I going too fast for you? I'm going to show you how I changed the Klan. I'll tell you what I did. Okay? You don't confront them on any of their beliefs. You side with them first. But you get to the guy in charge. There's always a guy in charge of every group. You try to work on him. So I fired a gun and split a cigarette near my little girl's mouth. She doesn't even remember this. So, what I did is I cut the cigarette with a razor blade, put a hairpin in it, and thought I had a roll of it. And the hairpin blew tobacco all over me after I fired the gun. I wouldn't do it even with my own daughter. But I didn't tell that to Lou Merman. He was very impressed. He said, will you come on down to the Klan, that's the way he spoke, and speak to our boys about what you're doing? I think you're a smart guy, and they ought to know about it. I said, Lou, I can't talk to them. They wouldn't understand. He said, don't worry, I'll get him to listen to you. I'll tell him to listen. This man, he knows what we're talking about. That's the way he spoke. So I used to make wire recordings. We didn't have tape recorders in the old days. They were wire recorders. Anybody remember that? It's just a wire going by a magnetic head. And we magnetized the wire. So I used to make recordings of their dialect so I'd know when I made the motion picture in the future on how to change people, show how it was done. So anyway, he invited me to a Klan meeting. And I said, Lou, you do some marvelous things. Will you teach us how to do those things? He says, well, what you want to know? I said, well, you could just look at a person, tell us all about him, and you don't even know the person. I said, will you teach me how to do that? He says, I didn't think I could teach you nothing, Jacque. You're a smart guy. I said, I don't know anything about how to change, how to look at people and tell what they're like. He said, well, I'll be glad to teach you. I said, next clan meeting. So I brought my equipment down with him, and I projected a picture on the wall of a character. White, sandy mustache, gray hair. And he's telling me all about the guy. He's a good Christian man, I'd say. I'd say a patriot, maybe a war veteran, projecting like mad his own values into this character. And I said, after about 10 minutes of detail, family man, God-fearing man, I'd say, anything else you want to add to it? He said, no, that pretty much sums him up. So I pulled the bottom of the picture out. He said, wanted by the FBI for subversive action against the United States. And the Klansmen were laughing at Lou for the first time, because he used to go on and nothing checked out, you know. They laughed, and so I said to the guys laughing, you guys shut your mouth. Lou knows more about people than we do. He's the head of the Klan. You protect him. You're on side with him. So he goofed up this time. Don't we all goof up sometime? And the next thing is a record of a guy speaking about aviation, heavy English, Oxford accent. So he says, I see a skinny Englishman without that, and a bald head, very white. And he's an educated guy, I say a college guy, well-educated, smart guy. Because what he was talking about was beyond and above what Lou knew or anyone else. And then the image comes on later, special record I made, and it's a black guy raised in England. Completely off. White, skinny white man with a bald head. So I said, Lou, he said, after the film, he said, goddamn nigger talking like an Englishman. Goddamn nigger talking like an Englishman. I said, that nigger, I have to use those words, was raised in England. And if he was raised in France, he talked like a Frenchman. He said, you mean to say that niggers talk like niggers because they're brought up in a nigger environment? I said, precisely. That's the only way you can talk to them. I said, Lou, if I took your kid and brought him up by an impoverished black family, he goes, say, Dad, right, you right, just like that, if that's normal to that environment. If you take a white kid, a Swedish kid, brought him up by a black family, he's going to speak just like a black man. And take a Swedish kid, bring him up in Ireland, did you know that Lincoln was Irish, man? You know, he would speak just like an Irishman. Do you understand that? So you stop condemning people for the way they speak, or the way they act, or the way they think. My job was to turn them around. So they said, you mean to say that children brought up with ideas and not got any inborn instincts? I said, Lou, did you have to learn English? Didn't you have to learn how to fire a gun, how to empty the barrel, and the difference between a certain type of gun and another type of gun? He says, yeah. I said, Lou, is there anything you can say in French? I can't speak French. He said, because you never learned how. But to learn to speak, you got to be put in a French environment, or a school where French is spoken. If you want to be an aviator, you have to put in an aviation environment. They don't put you in an airplane. They put you in a dummy plane where you can move the controls first and gain control of that. Then you don't even get into a real airplane. They show you how to check the tire, make sure there's no water in your fuel, lots of things before you fly. Then you get in an airplane, move the controls, and you learn that there's the aileron, elevator, rudder, all parts. They have to put you in a medical environment to make you a doctor. They're not pathologist or anything. They put you in that environment. Now, we don't see with our eyes. We see with our brain. See, people think you see with your eyes. People think you have eyes to see with. That's another bullshit word. So whenever I meet a person like that, I bring them into a dark room and say, see. I can't see nothing. I said, right, it takes light for you to see. Then they used to try to teach me that plants grow. They can't grow unless there's sunlight, gravity, moisture, soil, temperature, all those things. Plants of themselves can't grow. Nothing is self-operating. That's where God comes in. The whole thing is that Nothing moves by itself. A sailboat moves by the wind. You speak by environment. You think from environment, so-called thinking. So everything is acted upon by other things. You're made up of stuff that was here eternally. The bugs you ate, plants you eat, the tissue you eat is converted to human tissue. If you eat that kind of beef, salami sandwiches and hot dogs with preservatives in it, you damage your living tissue. So we go ahead and do things because there's profit in it. I don't want to get into that too much. I want to get back to Lou Merlin and the clan. So what I did is I gave them examples and assignments. They want to know how to. So they said, well, how do you train dogs? My dog listen to me sometimes, and sometimes he don't come over. And my kids will never listen to me. This is Lou Merlin speaking. So I showed him how to get his kids to listen to him. And after that, I set them up with experiments to teach a dog how to walk upright or lie down or roll over, all the basic things. And they said, boy, that works. My kid now listens to me and all that. So, since that worked, I brought the final film in, which I made about 65 years ago in a transit camp. A transit camp is a place where they used to call them wild boys of the road, would be hitchhiking all over America. Their families were displaced, and we were hitchhiking on freight trains, on highways, and Roosevelt administration built these camps, like CC camps, if you know what that is. The kids worked 3 hours a day on the farm, growing the food. We got 75 cents a week. That kept us out of trouble. So, at the transit camp, I needed money for experiments. So I went to the head of the camp. He was an unemployed psychologist, Dr. Holt. I said, I'd like to do some animal experiments. Is that okay with you? He said, what kind of experiments? So I said, well, I want to find out. I catch a lot of raccoons for the North Miami Zoo, and they're very hard to train. I'd like to see what I can do with them. So he said, what are you going to do? What kind of training? He asked me a lot of questions, and I told him what I wanted to do. I wanted all the raccoons to be able to sit at a table. When I bring food there, they all go up and sit at the table. I want them to follow me around under certain conditions. He said, wait, I got a Bolex camera. Would you mind photographing what you do? I said, no, not at all. So he lent me his Bolex camera. And when he did that, I said, I want to do an experiment with a pig in particular. He said, I gave him a little discussion of what I want to do with a pig. He said, boy, that sounds fascinating. So he said to me, where do you get all your information on these things? He says, I never thought of that, things like that. So I said, from the best lab in the world, right out there. So he said, go. So this is what I did. I built a cage about the size of this table. It looked like a dome. I put a baby pig in it. If there's anything you don't understand, don't let me go on with this. I put a weighted paper basket in the middle of the table, countersunk. It was sunken down in the table. I put some crumpled paper near the wastebasket, just right near. And I knew the pig would hit it, because if you put a pig or any animal in a cage or a human, they walk up and back a lot. So I knew he'd hit that paper and knock it in the basket accidentally. On the bottom of the basket, I had a micro switch. That's a switch with a long extension. So when the paper hit, a food dispenser dispensed a little bit of food, not much, a little bit. But the pig did not get the connection until about 10 times. And associative memory doesn't form in animals very quick. So then the next thing I did is once he picked the paper and put it in the basket deliberately and waited under the dispenser, I began to move the dispenser further and further away until I got it in another area. Next thing I did, after he put the first piece of paper, I had a second piece of paper. And he put the first piece way around the dispenser, and he saw the second piece. And I figured by that time, his associative memory would get him to put the second piece. It worked. He put the second piece in the basket. Then I pulled the basket up, because it takes me too long to condition the pig to pick it up and put it in the basket. If you pull the basket up, the basket said, put waste here, remain clean, you know. Then I put dirty rags instead of paper like it. And the pig came in and he wore a white jacket and a little sign said the Immaculate Pig. And the pig kept putting up dirty rags in the basket and he cleaned up the area and then left. He went under the food dispenser. The next thing I wanted the pig to do was to take, change the dirty bed sheet. I made a bed for the pig. It looked like this. If you don't understand this, you must interrupt me. 2 rollers with the bedding stretched across the rollers. Now, if you put a pig in a confined environment, and this is soft enough, he will eventually get up on it, sleep on it. When the pig slept on it, if you get up in the morning, I then connected a wheel to this roller. And if the pig is kept in a confined environment, if you take rats and put them in a confined environment, you put a wheel in there, you don't have to train them. They'll go in and run. Adrenaline. So the pig eventually got up on this wheel, and when he turned it, that changed the dirty bed sheet. It wasn't that the pig was changing the dirty bed sheet. You understand that? Okay. Then I had a door to the cage that was partly open and food out there. And the pig tried to get out there and he couldn't. But then when he got back on the wheel and turned it, the door would open. If he turned it beyond the bed change, the door would open so he can get to the food. So the pig did that. The next thing I did, I wanted the pig to take a shower. Now that's outside of the pig's choices. So I had a rubber hose like the letter U. So you can picture this with a rubber hose bent like that with bamboo extensions sticking down, and it was just a little lower than the pig's height. So when the pig left his little confined sleeping area, he touched these gadgets walking through there, and that scratched his back. Pigs seemed to like that, so he turned around and went up and back about 10 times, getting his back scratched. Once that was established, I later used wires here, and the wires tripped a jar that was up here with soap and water and turned on the shower. Do you understand that? First the back scratching, then the shower. Now I showed that film to the clan. I showed the pig getting out of bed, changing the dirty bed sheet. Narration. Then the pig would take a shower and wear that white jacket, the Immaculate Pig, and pick up all the dirty things for the wasteman. And these clan, about 30 of them, are watching that film. It's a real pig. And they're watching, their jaws are open. I'll raise me a lot of pigs, Jacque. I ain't never seen no pig that smart. How come? I saw raised in a different environment. They said, what's that? I explained all the detail. So they began conditioning animals. See, Pavlov wrote about conditioned reflex, saliva flow, but he didn't know enough about it. The Russian government never understood. Neither did Pavlov. B.F. Skinner tried to do a lot of work along those lines, and I called him on the phone and talked to him. I said, do you think people are reflexive, conditioned? And he said, well, it's too early to say. He didn't have enough information at the time. So I want you to know that that film was a major mechanism of change, not confronting them with anything. Then I thought of making a motion picture to get to people. Here's what the movie is about. If you know any film producers, contact them. It's a family, 50 years into the future, walking along that lake over there. This is supposed to be the future. And they're walking along that lake, and there's 2 little kids. One is 7, the boy, and the girl is 6. But they're brought up in a new world, where they understand geology, continental drift. Kids can learn anything. They don't need Dickie Dare and Sheep Little Bo Peep. They can learn anything, math, physics, astronomy. Kids are interested in everything. So these kids are very well informed. And they're walking along that lake, and the little girl, with the camera's at the height of the little girl, turns up toward Daddy, and he bends down toward the camera. And the little girl says, Daddy, we live in such a wonderful world, so many flowers all around. It's during a certain season here. So we have a lot of flowers and things. And there's no prisons, no crime, no police. How do we get from that old world of jealousy, envy, hatred, war, poverty, hunger, lack of security. How did we get to this world? He said, didn't you get that in school? He said, only a little bit. The little boy says, I want to know in detail how you got from the old world to this one. It's a long story. Both of the kids insist. So he sits them down and he starts talking, and it fades out, comes back to the present day. Here's what happens. It's during this time. It's in cameras in front of the UN, and this is fictitious from here on out. There's a guy that looks like Albert Einstein. He's liked a great deal. I tried to address the UN. I was turned down. So here I have a guy like Einstein addressing the UN on how to build a world without war and all these problems. He's only given 1 hour by the UN because they say anything more than an hour doesn't work. This is today, the UN. You can't turn people around in 10 minutes or an hour. So anyway, this doctor's explaining to all the nations what I'm talking to you about. And the Prime Minister of France stands up and he says, in a heavy French accent, angrily, never would France accept a machine government. Never. It has no feeling, it doesn't care. We want people in government. And the whole UN stands up. I believe that's what would happen if this were presented in 1 hour to the UN. This is in the film. They all reject it. So the guy, like Einstein, he's made a lot of contributions to the world, new surgical instruments, X-ray machines. He's done a lot of wonderful things, but there you've gone too far. They can't accept that. So he says to the Prime Minister of France, would you mind coming up to the podium? He says, I'll do anything you ask. It's just that we can't accept this. But what do you want me to do? He comes up to the podium. Then this guy says, would you mind taking your jacket off and your shirt, expose your bare chest? He says, it's a very unusual request in a heavy French accent, but if you ask me, I'll do it. And he does it. He says, what's that scar you have here? He says, I have a pacemaker, a machine. How did you breathe when your heart gave out? There was a respiratory machine. There's a lot of mumbling in the UN, and a lot of listening and discussion. And it shows the first city going up, the new city. And the new city is like what I described to you, only I didn't finish it. But there is no ownership of anything. You live in a beautiful home. The interior is furnished according to your specs. Whatever you need. If you're an anthropologist, you can have films on anthropology without a price tag. You have films on behavioral sciences in your home. It's designed for you. Now, if your wife is an interior decorator, and you're, say, a physical scientist, and she's don't put your feet up on the table, and so we designed a double dome so she can have her type of environment, you can have your type connected together. Don't try to make her over like you, or she's going to make you over like her. Don't leave your tobacco pouch around. Whatever women, whatever difference there are, if they're too severe, you may have a lot of areas working in common, but during the transition, there's going to be problems. So I'm talking to you about the transition. So what happens in this city is how it works. We only design 1/8 of the city in this instance, and we reproduce it. Instead of having each architect design each building all around, it's much more efficient to do it that way. The central building is distribution, food, everything you use. Radio, television, communication center, schools, dental care, optics, medicine, everything is in the center. And each district is the same distance in the center. But if you build suburbia, the things you're given, the bullshit you're given, you got millions of houses, and you have to drive that way to school, this way to the dentist, that way for shopping. Waste of energy, waste of design. Here, they sell refrigerators that you put outside your window, keep your house cool. We have cool air under the ground, circulate, and those that want it, turn it on. When you walk out of your room, all the lights go out. The whole electrical system shuts down unless you press no on that. All your books are laser printed and they're printed from the outside by focusing laser beams, and if it's medical books, they're updated unless you press hold, but you don't want them updated. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so your house is very smart. You have no lamps like I have here. The ceiling glows evenly. And all you do is press a panel for the color blue or red, whatever you want the color to be of the interior. And instead of getting, she says, goddamn, turn the air conditioners down, too cold, you have zone cooling and zone heating. You know what I mean? It's warm in your zone, cool in your zone. And cool the way you want it. The furniture, when you sit in it, it accommodates. The reason you move in a chair is to improve circulation, because circulation cuts out. That's what bed sores are. So when I was in the Army Air Force, they drafted me, by the way. I only designed safety devices for airplanes, only. So they said when a pilot flies a great distance, he becomes fatigued. Sometimes he gets sores on his butt, like bed sores. So I designed a seat that inflated and deflated. It's just like you moving around. And I wanted that in hospital beds. So they deflate and inflate the people that are too sick to move around. Then I began to design surgical instruments, artificial legs, for medics. And I found out that certain people couldn't afford them. Even though he didn't have a leg, he couldn't afford that leg. So I said, what the hell am I wasting my time on this monetary society? So all this happened, most of this, during the Depression. Now, during the Depression, there were people up on soapboxes, talk about mankind united, back to Jesus, family values, everything, socialism, communism, and every university student was talking about socialism, communism, technocracy. All these things are being discussed all over the country. People were talking about new ideas. It took the Depression to make that happen. That's what's happening now. That's why people are looking into zeitgeist addendum, see, because things aren't working. So, to make it clear, I would say that I want to get you from one point to another in this film. I don't want to forget that. The film is about the change and what will happen during the change, how our language will be updated. If you learn a foreign language, most languages, foreign, are older. And if they're older, they're thalamic, meaning based on emotions and feeling. Cortical language is, I want to explain the difference. In thalamic language, if you're driving an automobile with both of your kids in it, and it slips off the highway, and it turns over, and your kids are trapped in it, say, oh my God, the gasoline is coming out, it's going over the engine, that's emotional. But if you pick up a heavy limber, break the window, take your kids out, that's cortical behavior. Converting emotions to a workable system. As I say, oh my God, my house on fire, 2 kids are in the bedroom, what can I do? That's emotional. Emotional behavior will change in the future into cortical behavior. Do you think you understand what that means? Anybody that doesn't?
What is cortical behavior?
Cortical is doing the best thing to get the kids out of the building or out of the car.
The rational
Okay?
thing.
Yeah.
Operate. Do something about it. Say, God, the winters are awfully cold. Well, what do you suggest? Like these politicians say, you can't have socialized medicine in America, and everything else be socialized. What do you suggest we do for people that don't have medical care? Ask them, what do you suggest? You'll never get an answer. See, they have no answers. So what you have to do is point out what doesn't work in the system. If you show people houses without curtains, because curtains harbor all kinds of fungi, and curtains harbor all kinds of odor. So do carpets. But in the future, your windows will go dark as you want them to. If you don't want bright light, you don't pull curtains in front of it. It sets a lot of dust, of course, in the air. Not because Fresco doesn't like curtains. They're just not good. So what you want, your windows to go dark. And so if you want your windows to go dark, you can either verbalize that you want your windows to go dark. You'll have a built-in telephone in your ceiling, and you can speak to people in France, and you don't have to pick up a gadget and hold it and talk to it. You can talk it, and it'll focus that right to your ear, so no one else in the room can hear it unless you want everyone else to hear it. The houses of the future will be smart. In other words, they will reflect light, turn themselves off when they're not in use. And you won't have to cook every morning. You know, all people making bacon and eggs every morning. All you have to do is put it, well, I better tell you this first. In the automobile factories, they spray the bottom of cars with a rubber-like material so they won't drive you crazy when it's raining. It absorbs sound. So your cars, you can't hear every drop of rain hitting it. So a guy has to spray that first under the car, and the computer follows every motion that he makes. From then on, machines do it. So you will make bacon and eggs the way you like it, whoever you like for breakfast, in front of the service computer. And it'll pick that up so that everybody doesn't do the same thing every fucking morning. The oven and the refrigerator and all that shit around. Everybody buys a refrigerator. In the future, you won't have that. I'll describe the future. I just ask you, please, don't take out patents on these things. Okay? I can't afford to patent everything I think of, so I released a lot of stuff. The oven, instead of having a hot plate, you put a pot on it, and it boils the water. All the pots of the future have a pinnacle sticking up in it. This is a sectional view of a pot with a pinnacle. The heater is in the pinnacle, so the heat only goes through the soup. Do you understand that?
No, can you explain it again?
Pots have a hollow sticking up, and the heater is on the oven. And you put that pot over it, and it just heats the soup, not the whole area.
The whole kitchen.
Now, the electric companies would hate that product.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Because you're not using the whole kitchen.
Right, now, all your pots and all your pans will be designed to maximize the use of heat. Now, geothermal energy is the heat of the earth. There's enough geothermal energy to supply all the nations with 10 times the energy they use, just that alone. Then there's temperature differential between the top of the ocean and the bottom. Bottom is generally cool, while the top is cool and the bottom is warm. But temperature differences can generate electricity. All water spilling over anything generates electricity, not just the spillways and turbines. You can generate enough electricity from all the rivers and waterways alone to operate everything in the world without anything else, any other source. No wind generation, anything else. There's more energy out there. I'm not talking about the sun alone, which has more than we can use. So I'm saying that the system you live under deprives people. Patents, when you take a patent out, other nations can use that for growing food faster or better. But they can't because you got a patent on it. So patents will belong to everyone in the nation, but all inventors and all people be taken care of, medically and every other way. Do you understand that? Since everybody has access to wristwatches or anything they want, the only thing that's private is after the change, you may have some original Picasso paintings. Okay? So if you have about 100 paintings that you like, we asked you to put it on tour so others might enjoy it. She said, no, they're mine. So we put that in the local board. She said, no, they're mine. Pretty soon you'll be pushed by your neighbors to put that out. We don't twist your wrist. You understand? She said, no. That's all you have to do.
I have a question about the housing situation. Now, say this house right here has the best view out of any house.
Yeah.
What person gets that house? What does it do?
They don't get
Someone wants
into
a better
that city with that value system.
I understand the thinking will be different, but
Yeah.
But if
Let's say there's a less desirable job during the transition. Coal mining is not very pleasant. So whatever it is, cleaning out the washrooms. In France, they have washrooms that are self-clean. Did you know that? All right, now, so we can make we don't need any dirty jobs. But during the transition, if you have a dirty job, you work 2 hours a day, you get 3 days off, or you get a month's vacation instead of a week and a half or 2 weeks. You just vary the reinforcement. You get anybody to do anything. You understand what I'm saying? It's very easy to get people to work in hospitals instead of working 3 hours. If a guy that's very heavy, say, shits in bed, the nurses have to turn him over, clean the bed. There's a section of bed that pulls out. If he has to defecate, he can. But instead of rolling over, the bed itself has 2 cases, and it leans and he rolls over. You don't need people to do that. You don't need people doing diagnostic work. In other words, when you go to medical school, they'll show you a certain type of skin disorder and tell you that's psoriasis. So then you look at something else and they, oh, that pattern's measles. You have to remember those patterns. That's part of medical training. But all you have to do is photograph every known skin disease, every known skin disease. Then you hold your hand in front of an analytical scanner, and it scans connected to the best dermatologist in the world, and you get the immediate prescription for that. You don't need a guy saying, not sure, Dr. Jones, can you come in here? These guys been around a lot. You know, that's a form of Jamaican malaria. It's a little different than malaria found in the South Seas. And he points out the difference. So all those things, everything a person learns can be programmed. We can make a desktop analytical diagnostician in an hour and a half. Instead of wiping the baby's ass, sending him to school, and he goes to medical school, and he works as a waiter while he's going to school because he doesn't have the money. So we can make those things. All we do is hold your hand up, tell us the right way. Because the doctor is only comparing what he sees with what he learned. So that's what I mean by most professions. 90% will be displaced. And as you look at the auto industry, people used to assemble cars. Now you'll see a whole bunch of computers pick up the doors and put them on and the wheels. Have you noticed that in the automobile companies? Now, automation is an ongoing process. If you continue the system, the money system, with automation coming in, the people won't have the purchasing power to buy the things. So that's the end of the system. No system can freeze and keep going forever, because things change. So you can delay it, you can delay change for a year, but it'll break down. That's where you're at now. You're at a turning point in the way the world does its business, conducts affairs. People are looking more so now. There'll be no solutions except one nation conquering other nations, turning prisoners loose. America has the largest prison population, and they're privatized a lot. So what will happen, they're going to have to turn the prisoners loose. And first, the prisoners that are not too dangerous. Guys that were caught gambling or prostitution, they'll turn them loose first. Then later on they'll turn the others loose. Then it'll be too difficult to manage, and they'll call out the Army and Navy in the impoverished areas, say you have to be in your house at 9 o'clock, no walking around the streets at night, because crime is going to accelerate. It's just crosses continuous. It's not going to work. And if you know about the Venus Project, talk to people about it. Talk about what we're trying to do. There's no Fresco in charge. Because who makes the decision in the Venus Project? I want to tell you, this is a very important part of it. No one. Here's how it works. We take samples of the soil, say, from all over America. Let's say we just do it. It goes to Central Agriculture. There they analyze the soil. And by the contents, the agronomists, not farmers, tell you it's best to grow beets for 3 years, then change to carrots. That's not an opinion. That's a finding. There's no more, what do you think? What do you think? What do you know? So we do research in different areas. When a new drug comes out, we try it experimentally. For example, they do chemotherapy and radiation therapy, which is very, very painful, very unpleasant, and doesn't usually save the person. So what we would do is take cancer cells in the future. If I kicked a bucket, you can tell this to your fellow medics. They can take cancer cells and keep them alive and treat the cancer growth itself, not person, until you gain control. But your problem is not treating cancer, heart disease, or cystic fibrosis. Your problem is living systems. So you cultivate living tissue and control its rate of growth, faster, slower. Once you gain control of living systems and living organisms, you learn how to control them, then you approach a disease. This way, not only researchers doing medical research, there are areas all over the world. The whole system is wrong. And you got airplane designers, by the way. When I was at Wright Field, they built a $50 million wind tunnel. And I said to I was just a corporal. I just didn't want to go to military. So I said, that wind tunnel is a nothing thing. I said that to a major. He said, what do you mean? He got angry. I said, you got to give me at least a half hour, and you can put me in the clinic. He said, fair enough. So I said, the wind tunnel says that this is the best shape for an airplane. That's what the wind tunnel does say. But you need a radar in front, so you put a ball there. You need a machine gunner in the back, so you put a machine gunner. Then you need a pilot's cabin with a glass sticking up. Then you need a gunner behind them to protect them. You can't retract the bomb bay doors if they're compound curve. They have to be straight, then they can travel up the track. So what the hell do you want a wind tunnel for? Just build what you need. Okay? So why don't they do that? I said, because they're assholes. He said to me, I got to talk to the colonel about you. We got to get you a private lab. He talked to the colonel. The colonel said, why doesn't he go to OCS? He said, because he hates the military and everything connected. He said, I don't want to talk to him. I couldn't see the colonel. I didn't know, I wasn't tactical then enough to get to him. But anyway, I would have turned the Army around at Wright Field, but I didn't have enough information and technique for doing that. Do you understand this example? Okay. That's why you have to be able to say, I addressed a bunch of policemen years ago to see how they reacted. I said, we really don't need policemen. Oh, they said, you gotta have them. You gotta call them in case of emergency, I said, this is how we can do away with it. I can put a little gadget. If you don't know what a chimograph is, there's a cylinder that scribes earthquakes and other things. You've seen that, I'm sure. Oh, I put a chimograph in every automobile where it says 60 miles an hour. If you go 80 miles an hour, the chimograph registers. Anything above the regulated speed, you have to mail that in once a week. So if you want people to drive safely, you can do that. Everybody doesn't understand what I'm talking about. This cylinder is in your car. If you violate the regulation, no left turn in a right turn district, it's on the chimograph. Every month you have to tear that and mail it in, all your violations. So the policeman said, yeah, but that'd put us all out of work, the motorcycle cops and all that. So I said, well, what about a school district? It says 15 miles an hour, school district, children crossing. Be careful. Drive slowly. They leave it up to you. But you can't always notice everything around you. And you don't always obey those rules. So I have a pavement that looks like a comb. And when the kid wants to cross, he presses a button and it turns up so no car can hit a kid. Do you understand what I'm saying? Anybody that doesn't? It's a lightweight structure that turns up when that kid presses the button. The red light goes on, just turns up so the kid can cross the street. So I said to the policeman, by the way, I can design a system near the school so you can't do more than 14 miles an hour. School, you can press on the gas all you want to, but the power output, that's finally going beyond. So I tell the cops that we don't have burglary because people have access to information, have access to the necessities of life. Why should they break into a store and steal? Because they can't change human nature. Then I show a film on changing human beings. You understand? Every job can be phased out as long as it's a process that you learn. You can put that in a laptop. They're not there yet. Your laptop doesn't tell you what to do. But in the future, say you want to pick a home. You want to pick the home you want to live in. You sit in front of a plastic bubble and you talk to it. That's the architect. I want a home. The bubble says, what kind of home? Most people, I'm not sure. So different homes appear to rotate. And you say when you're ready, stop, something like that. And the next thing you say is, I'd like to see the floor plan. The roof lifts off. You and your wife or your friend or your partner, or if you're gay, your male partner looks at the plan and says, can you move the children's room next to the adult bedroom? meaning this matter, and it moves. Why did you talk? Then she says, I'd like the washroom is a certain way, and as you talk, it changes. And then it says, would you like a virtual experience? You walk into another room, and the house you talked about appears as a virtual reality. She says, I didn't think the sink would be that low. It's a say when it moves up. So you get exactly the kind of house you want, not what some architect think you want. Everybody doesn't understand that? How much can you do with that today? Oh, we can do a lot of things. There are materials that can change color by temperature. There are materials that can change color by command. There are machines today that can write what you talk about. See? So when a person, this is a true thing, I'll tell you. Somebody wrote Somerset Maugham and said, Somerset Maugham is considered a good writer, great writer. She said, I want my son to be a great writer. What should I do? What school should I send him to? He said, don't send him to any school. Give him $300, turn him loose in New York, and tell him not to come back for a year. He'll have something to write about. When people go to school and want to become writers, so they got a formula. Same with movies. You can't show everything being okay. For example, in ancient Rome, it was normal for Saturday and Sunday people to come and see the Christians being fed to lions. But they used to starve the lions to make it more exciting and tear the clothes off the Christian people so the lions would have an easier job of tearing them to pieces. So the whole family used to come, and the kids would say, Daddy, can I come next week to see Christians being fed to lions? And Daddy would say, if you behave yourself. Now you think those kids are nuts? No. That was normal to their environment. You go to a circus today, you watch two men punch the hell out of each other because you're brought up in that kind of environment. You like football, baseball, sports. None of that will exist in the future. It makes people unhealthy, aggressively. They get sore at each other. They don't come over and say, hey, you did a great job. Even in football or baseball, they don't walk over you. Tennis, a little bit of that. But most sports are not good. Wrestlers jump on each other. If you guaranteed to take care of that guy after his injury, it'd be all right, but you don't. You keep punching guys in the head, and they become cerebral insufficients. You understand that? That's why people will never go to an air show to see a girl fly upside down through a hangar. She's great. If she crashes, you should have been there. You missed fire of 14 planes, 8 people were killed. People are all stick bastards in this culture. What they demand is unhealthy. Yes. Thank you. Did I get it?
You're on HD now.
Anyway, it's important that I get this information across to you. Now, whenever I say I know two people in the same environment, it's never the same environment. They don't know how to make an identical generator of behavior. So you never give kids ratings in school. You got passing mark, you got a failure. Once he said, what did you get? Then you get all kinds of distorted behavior. I'm smarter than you. Jealousy, envy. So in school, you have to learn how to upgrade certain people and do that with everybody. So everybody learns at the best rate for them. You no longer grade people. And you no longer get your PhD, and that's it. School continues all through life. That's an emergent society. An established society, you get your PhD and you're out there and you're working. See, nobody will ever learn everything about everything. So you're always learning new things. That's why the old folks, people my age, sit on a rocking chair and talk about the good old days. When I was 21, I was a horse's ass. At 35, you learn a little more. If you fall in love at 14, then you fall in love at 35, it's different. Your standards keep changing. So it's very hard for people to marry young and go on indefinitely. The average marriage today lasts about 5 years. Because people aren't trained for change. In this society, they will expect change and look forward to change. not be threatened by it. If a new machine comes in my factory, I don't say to you, you now work 3 hours a day, your pay is increased by $40 or something, and your vacation's increased. I get rid of you. It's called downsizing. So new machines, the Luddites in England, they try to smash machines, because they're a threat to people. In the future, they'll be a blessing. There'll be no dirty jobs, nobody breaking your window or raping your sister. All that's weeded out. People have sex when they're able to. And you no longer you have to show people, you have to teach them a lot of things, of course. There's such a thing called dynamic equilibrium in nature. That means if you have 100 acres here, and you have 2 fox and 4 rabbits, or 6 rabbits, and rabbits eat the roots of plants. If a drought comes, the rabbits die and the fox die. But if there's lots of roots growing, the rabbits will multiply, so will the fox. But the fox can't multiply beyond the carrying capacity of that environment. In other words, if you produce more people than the earth can feed, you're going to have riots, hunger, crime. So we must study the carrying capacity of every regional district of the earth and maintain a population in accordance with the carrying capacity, not Fresco's opinions. You understand, I'm not a dictator, but you understand that. That is a bunch of scientists telling people what to do. First we measure how much transportation we have, how much arable land area. That tells how many people the earth can support. Then you do a global survey of national health, all kinds of physical diseases. You build your hospitals in accordance with your survey. You don't build up a hospital, hope you get enough clients for the next 4 years. Because hospitals go bankrupt. The system is no good. It's detrimental in every area. I can't think of anything this system has except technology. We're moving forward in that area. Other areas, we're backward. You can't live to yourself anymore. Somebody said, well, let's make this for America. The hell with the rest of the world. Let them solve their own problem. If you do that, and the Russians and Chinese do nuclear experiments in the ocean and have wars, they're going to pollute the rest of the world. So we've got to bring all the nations of the world together. Here's how you do it. All right, now, these are things I'm sure you guys don't know about. There used to be a place called Ellis Island, where people would come to America. We wanted all kinds of people to come, because there's opportunities. We needed people to work. And the Arabs came with their 10 wives and 15 wives. The guy says, you can only bring 1 wife. He says, why? Where he come from, everybody has a lot of wives. I said, well, in America we have 1 wife. He said, you have 1 wife and you don't even get along. We have 10 wives, they all get along with each other. So they argue, and there's no right or wrong way. There's no right or wrong. All that's bullshit. Depends on the culture you're coming from. See, so we base our decision-making upon a global survey. Then we break down the differences in nations, not by attacking their religion or their social customs. What you do is you talk about things we all have in common. All nations need clean air, clean water, arable land, and a relevant education. Relevant education means no business courses, no courses in professions that are parasitic, that don't do anything. Okay? They know how to farm, they know how to operate farm equipment, or design automated equipment to do that. Is that clear? So that's the kind of professions you have in the future. Professions that make the world a better place. There's no profession to take advantage of your position. There's no gambling casinos, no need for them. Now, most millionaires that I've met were very stupid people. They know investment banking, they know money systems, but they don't know how to live. So one of those guys that worth $4 million gets another $2 million, he buys a gambling casino. He doesn't have to have any more money. He can live anywhere he wants to with $4 million, or $10 million, or $2 billion. What do you need that kind of money for? You think of a guy like, the guy that made his money, Bill Gates, you think that he has a way of thinking? No, he doesn't. He'll build a big house with a lot of rooms, with a lot of guests in a swimming pool. But he doesn't know what to do with his life. Because you don't learn in school how to relate to people, how to get along, how to find meaning in their own life and select a direction. All the things that are absolutely necessary you don't get in school, and your parents don't teach you because they don't know. So I'm saying there is other ways of doing things, and it would take us about 10 years to change the surface of the earth to what you would call paradise. And when I say the middle class live better than kings, everyone will live better than Bill Gates. You have no idea of what the future will generate. It will generate smart interiors, furniture that you sit on, that memorizes your body contours and adjusts to it. You'll have so many different things. Your computer puts you in touch with the world. 10 years ago, or say 11 years ago, what your laptop does would cost $10 million. You know? How many of you knew that? So your laptop is getting smarter, broader, wider, smaller, faster, and that's happening in all technology. So when I say the future will live better than Bill Gates, this is what I'm talking about. All you have to do is say to your oven, bacon and eggs, Chef Milani style. Got it. Now, the waitress said to me, will I be a waitress in your system? I don't mind, she said. I said, no, not at all. It's not my system. It's a system. The minute you sit at a table, the menu lights up. You understand that? It's not visible until you sit there. Then it scans you. Why does it scan you? You wear a ring or something that tells you who you are. And if you're diabetic, it adjusts the food that comes up in the middle of the table to you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Doesn't have to, how long you had that, how you on treatment, all that. Hospitals will be very different design. Right now, they're designed by architects. In the future, they'll be designed by social engineers. They say, what's a hospital for? What are your kids for? What do you have kids for? Do you have kids because that's the thing to do? Everybody has kids. You get married, you have kids. It's the result of fucking. People don't have sex to have kids. They mostly have sex, the kids result from it. So the more kids you've got, don't get mad at me. Think about what I'm saying. So the reason that I'm saying kids are false, because if you really like kids, you'd be talking to kids all your life. You spend time with kids because they're boring as shit. They have nothing new to say. The kid can say, lie. Look, that's my daddy, and that's my mommy, and that's my sister. They can't say anything interesting. You say, oh, how cute. See? All that bullshit conversation will disappear because your options become thousands of different things you can do. You wouldn't want to wipe a baby's ass. You want a baby's ass wiping machine. and so people, if you ask people what they want, you know, if you go to an impoverished area of blacks, say, you say, what do you want? You have anything you want. He says, well, I like me a pool table. Because they don't even dream outside of the area they live in. And people think within their culture. If you ask an Indian, say Seminole Indian, what do you want? He says, I'd like a nice thatched hut on a reservation. He's not going to say clear water systems, arable land, nutritious food. He can't say that because he doesn't have that in his background. That's what I mean by people cannot exceed their environment. Now, how about some questions or disagreements or areas that you have problems with? Yes.
Okay, people all the time talk about how to get there. From my perspective,
We want to make this
at the root or at the radical, I think the question has to do with decision. I won't say governance, I won't say
I'm
politics.
going to try to answer that. And if I failed, you have to let me know. So you didn't answer it.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, the system has to collapse. That puts people in, hey, what happened to my job? I can't get another job. You have to put them in a condition where they look for other things. Right now, they don't give a shit. All they give a shit about their personal lives. Most lives in monetary systems are self-centered. Do you understand that? What's in it for me? Okay. When they lose their jobs and can't get another job, and the Obama group is not able to solve the problem, and England begins to collapse, and France, and all the other countries, then they say, what else is there? Well, there's communism. Well, that didn't work. It became corrupt. So they will try different systems. Now, I don't say they'll accept this system. If they don't accept it, I feel very sorry for the human race. See, I'm on my way out, but most people have a long life to go. So I don't worry about it at all. But anyway, I'm saying that if they fail to gain this type of knowledge, if they fail to provide the funds for making this motion picture, this is all we can do, is show people the kind of world they can have in the next few years, not 1,000 years from now. The transitional phase will be painful. There'll be crime, corruption through the transition if we get there. If the transition occurs, we start building a new city, we will have an open system in it, where we invite people from all over the world to live as guests in the city, see if they like it, then build 3 in Russia, 3 in China, 10 in France, and on and on until we merge. We can't, Wednesday morning, declare the earth common heritage. You can't do that. I have nothing to do with that. I only have to deal with people that are fucked up, governments that are corrupt. That's where we're at now. To get there, you have to go through the painful transition. And the decision makers will not be what you call decision makers. Let me tell you about it. There are roboticists today, people that design robots, that are writing books on the machine takeover of the future. Let me tell you why that won't happen. Machines do not have ambition. They don't give a shit, they don't care about it. If you work your computer Saturday, Sunday, Monday in front of 10 other computers, it doesn't say, hey, you got to give that computer some time off. They don't give a shit. Right, so your computer, they don't also say, if it isn't this month, we'll get you next month, but we'll get you. They don't care. Airplanes fly, they say 2,000 miles an hour, let's say 3,000 miles an hour. You can't see an enemy coming if they fly that fast. So the Army has equipped military planes with radar, so scans the field well in front of you and tells you in the next 10 seconds the plane will appear on the scope. Now even then they've taken the decision away. When the pilot presses a button for machine gun bullets, none come out unless that plane is within the cone of fire. And anybody doesn't know what that means? It means where the bullets are. The Army now makes machine guns with a laser beam. When it's on the person, you press the trigger. If it's off the person, the bullet won't hit them. Do you understand what I'm saying? In the future, you can put mechanisms out there designed to shoot people you don't like. If this system goes on the way it goes, technology will be used the wrong way. We are not wise enough to enter space. I don't like the U.S. being the leader in space, because sooner or later, I know you'll have nuclear weapons going around. All you have to do is drop them. And I know that the Chinese, instead of building big armies, will do something brand new and different. This is what they're going to do. They're going to work on computer jamming systems. You don't need to build big armies or warships or lots of airplanes anymore. All you have to do is design a system that will jam military computers. You understand that? In that way you can knock out armies, navies without weapons. Oh, yeah, that's the future. So the Pentagon is made up of old-time army men. They don't think this way until they're forced to. They will be forced to, because that will occur. I have no doubt about what I'm saying, whether I'm here or not, but the system could break down into a point of no return, where we damage the oceans and the air so badly, and human behavior so badly, that it's impractical to work it out. That's why when you leave here, you must talk to people. We don't have that kind of time. To do a survey all over the world, and we ask people from all over the world, tell us how many trucks they have, production factories, how well equipped they are, how much resources they have. Otherwise we can't make decisions. You understand? The global survey, but they do not control people. Those machines that I've got there, none of them control people. Just production of goods and services, making it available. If a girl wants to live with 9 guys, a guy wants to live with 9 girls, if they all agree to that, you can live any lifestyle you want to, but you can't enforce it on other people. But every point of view is on the air. Now that's what liberty means, freedom. Otherwise, without a definition of freedom, we live in a free country, you know it's not free. There's no left turn for you. There's all decisions are made for you. You want to work, you want to eat, you go to work. Or you apply for relief. But you got to fill out a form. It's all regulated. The minute you go to work for any industry, it's a dictatorship. When you punch that time clock, they don't say, what would you like to do? They tell you what you do, particularly the Army. And by telling people what to do, you kill. The whole thing of humans is the ability and the social memory to work on problems. I would take all the soldiers, if I had any control, and send them back to college to become problem solvers. How to solve different types of problems. Imagine what would happen to the world if you took the Army and made them problem solvers. Right now they're killing machines. You have to tell that to soldiers. Try to talk to them. And if you get enough soldiers in the right direction, they can't operate. Now, that's a hard thing to do, but you're living during the transition, and people will be rigidized more so. Television will become less free, because they depend on people advertising. TV, having me on would be damaging to CNN. Not really. It'd be beneficial, actually, but they don't understand that. Other countries do. Other countries understand that I'm not talking about overthrow of the government. I'm talking about what you do in case it doesn't work. If the system falls completely, you install a resource-based economy. But it's got to fall. No one's about to install this unless it falls. So when doctors can't collect money from people, when they get more checks bounced, things don't work, I'd like you to know this. A lot of ministers during the Depression joined technocracy and the Socialist Party. Did you know that? Because they weren't collecting much money in church. So we will support people that don't want to live in this system. Suppose you meet Amish folks. They're brought up differently than we are. They don't want to live in that system. They want to live their own way. We will put up the buildings for them of fireproof materials. But if they say, I like wood, I like the feel of it, and the smell of it, then in case it gets fire, it's your problem. We'll build you whatever you want. We'll support your ministers. You don't have to dig up nickels and dimes. And as long as they feel, as long as you don't threaten people to take anything away from them, I feel that they will, in time, turn around and join with us. But don't outlaw religion. Don't try to outlaw anything. Just present physical evidence to everything you talk about. And I think you can turn most people around. By the way, you don't have to change everybody. This country today, I say America, meaning all of the technical world, is probably on the backs of no more than 50 people that gave us all the wonderful things. If you turn off Boulder Dam, all the food would spoil, the lights would go out, traffic would stop, trains would stop, planes would stop. Now, everything you got is technical. There's nothing politicians give you. They can't. So I'm saying we don't have technicians controlling you. They merely serve in their best area of interest. If you're an agronomist, grow food, I say, what do you do with exhausted soil? I say, that's an area we need a lot of research on, how to build soil. And he, if assuming he is an agronomist, he would say it takes 1,000 years for nature to produce 1 inch of topsoil. And we build cities right up on top of topsoil. In the future, we'll shave off the topsoil, put it in soil banks, because we don't even know what's important. Let me put it another way. Years ago, I wrote a little science fiction novel about people that came from another world to this world. And they want to know what we're like. And there's no information they get. Finally, they find big doors this thick. It's called a safe. And they open them. And they find the same fucking death certificates, money, no history of medicine, how we got to be the way, the history of flying machines, the technology that made us what we are. All you got in banks is death certificates and money. That's the only safe place. How stupid can you be? So I do a lecture called The Limitless Dimensions of Human Stupidity. And that has all of that shit in it. Now, I'm trying to tell you, we live in a very bad world. It's much worse than you think it is. So you got to go to work when you leave here. You got to tell people, show them the books, show them the videotapes, and have a discussion. The reason I'm putting all this effort out for you is so if I kick the bucket tomorrow, you'll have something you can do. You know, So it isn't how long you live, it's the quality of your life. If I live to be 30 years old and learn a lot, I feel that's great. But if you live to be 104 and do nothing, I say it's a nothing thing. Okay? So is there anything anyone would like to visit the place? In the beginning of the movie, we also have scenery like two farmers walking down the road talking about the Wright brothers being crazy trying to build a flying machine. And they spit and they said, if the good Lord wanted man to fly, he'd have been born with wings. I said, yep. And then the right rifling puts over and his jaw hits the paper and the false teeth drop down in the film. and he says, I've changed my mind. He didn't change his mind, he was changed by events. People can't open their cranial case and read the range of association. You want to talk about the brain and eyes, eye disorders of the future? You know the little guy they put on the eye that splits it automatically and causes it to contract so you don't need glasses? Have you seen that system yet?
Well, we have all different kinds. Any cut in the front part of the eye is going to change the shape of it.
There's a thing about eyes and ears and sense of smell. Like you may have better vision than me, but I may have educated vision. I know every 10 degrees. You don't, you know what I mean? And I may even know what to look for when I look at things. We look at them differently based on our background. You understand? He may have better hearing than this fellow, but this fellow knows what to listen for. He's a musician. He knows exactly what's... You don't hear that by an orchestra leader, conductor, who knows what to listen for. So there's vision, educated vision, there's taste, educated taste, all that has to be talked about. Now we have to bring up children so they can use most of their facilities well, instead of a person saying, I'm not creative, I'd like to write, but I don't even know how to start. It's very easy to be a great writer. You can learn in less than a minute. Principle. The principle of writing is, all you have to do is take one scene of a woman standing at a cemetery with a tear coming out. Take it from there. The whole story is self-evident. Now, if you take another one, say a guy lying in a lifeboat with parched lips and his canteen empty and the sun beating down, you can take that and build a story all around. You don't have to think of the whole story. You know, just show a war veteran on crutches, just show him walking, and then go into it. You see what I mean? That's how you write. But writers say, well, you just have to practice and write. You know, they don't give you detail. And it's a detail, like the way I teach children to draw like adults. I go right to it. You don't need to start at childish drawings. You don't need to do 2 and 2 is 4, 4 and 4 is 8. Because when I was a kid, the teacher said 2 and 2 is 4. I said, 4 what? You know? So I said, in my early work of the lab, I'd have one drop dropped in a glass tube. And by turning on a certain range of sounds, that one drop becomes 6 drops by vibratory method. So sometimes 2 and 2 can make 20. You know, if you learn to think 2 and 2 is 4, 4 and 4 is 8, rote, your flexibility is limited. You think you understand that? You can take one drop of water, released by an eyedropper, generate different types of sound in that glass tube, and that drop breaks into 20 drops or 2 drops, depending on the vibratory rate. You understand what I'm saying? Or do you interpret?
Yeah.
So, to think creatively, it's best to be able, like if a person says, I want to become a creative architect, I say, study seashells. You're going to make that paper cylinder. Study seashells. They have so many different shapes for your head to be filled with many different types of contours. But if you just study architecture, you're going to see all a house with pointy roof. They're all alike. You know, very, very little originality. So I wanted to show you something about the strength of materials, but if you try to remove that from the table, it'd be safer.
Are we going to remove everything?
Okay, so there you see one piece of paper, the paper I draw on, rolled into a cylinder, okay?
This can't hold a book.
You take it from there. You can't do anything with a straight sheet of paper. You can't hold up any weight. You can't make a good roof with it. It's always sagging. A straight sheet. But if you bend it into a circle, she's going to show you what it'll do.
Put the camera on
So you try your prediction too. Are you going to handle that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
This one was filming.
You want to gather around and watch this? It's interesting.
Yeah, walk back and forth.
Get a heavy book, which you could never do with one. Let somebody feel the weight of that book.
I'm not going to do it. We do it. He wants to do that with every book. Is that on center
No,
there?
more to the left.
No,
No.
that way.
More to the left.
Well, that'll work.
My
More.
left? It's,
One more
That's
movement.
pretty good.
oh, yeah. How about that way? Is that center?
That's a pretty heavy book on one piece of paper.
This one's a heavy one. Oops. It's just like one of these.
Looks like the mega machines in the future will lower things down slowly like that.
Let me know when you think it'll go.
Ooh.
I'm gonna stand up.
Just grab like 5 at a time.
Those
It's
are
a really heavy one.
weighty books.
Oh boy.
So I can do this.
That's why all the buildings around are contoured, because they're much stronger than straight sections.
That's why the eye is round. That's why the eye is
You
round.
could lift that, try to lift that off. It's pretty heavy when she gets.
Really heavy.
I'm still holding it for you. That's great.
It's no trick.
No, it also right now it'd be very, very hard to like push the paper in too, correct?
Yeah.
Try carrying that away.
I'm good.
That's a heavy book.
Yeah, it is.
Left. A little to the left.
Yeah, there you go. It's a lovely one.
Watch, I take a picture.
I'm always impressed by that. Well, they won't know whether that's a concrete cylinder or not. Is that what you expected?
No. I thought you were gonna put one book on it and say, "Yep,
Yep.
you can hold the book." Tired than the paper now.
Yeah.
You couldn't even lift it.
We used to have a competition.
It's pretty heavy too.
Oh.
This might do it.
Yeah.
This is really heavy.
Yes.
Yeah, and then
One to the left.
This way? This way.
Oh boy.
Oh my god, that's... Is it wobbly?
Everybody go back.
That's a good one. Yeah. Let's try and lift all these. I can't.
You don't have to be an engineer to understand that. It makes a lot of difference.
Makes a lot of
When you design the building. That's why they're most of them contoured for that reason.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Yeah, I work in the customer service type of job,
yeah.
and people are relieved when they hear a human voice. Do you feel in the future that people will get tired of automatic voices saying do this, do that?
No, because the automatic voices will flex to their values. It won't be a repeat like a recording. It'd be a recording that understands, like if you speak with hesitancy, you don't have to be insecure. In other words, it measures all those values. See, the trouble with the world today is we must photograph Elvis Presley 2 miles of film. On Einstein, maybe 500 feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you photographed Einstein getting up, sitting down, his value system, interviews, then in the future we can put that together. I'm sure you've heard you can't be two places at the same time. When Frank Sinatra sings, he's dead. He sings 4,000 places at the same time. In the future, we'll generate what you call virtual image of Frank Sinatra, singing in your rooms, full, standing there. The only thing that matters is you'll be able to put your hand through it. After that comes teletactile television, where you can touch people, shake hands with them. Now that seems far-fetched. Well, let me tell you a little bit about it. I took sandpaper and ran it under my finger years ago. It's over 50 years ago. And I put needles into my fingertip. So from the fingertip to the brain, the sandpaper running there tells me something rough under my fingers. But it's from the tip to the brain. But when you stick that same finger in cold water, the signals change. If you play back into the finger the same signals, if you make a recording of them, you'll feel sandpaper on there, hot or cold water, or a balloon as against a solid surface. You understand what I'm saying? So it isn't mysterious. You have difficulty with it?
Yeah, how do you record that?
You can make a recording from the needle inward. In other words, you run that through an amplifier and while the sandpaper is being moved under there. When you stick your hand in cold water, you take the signals from the nerve endings to the brain, which penetrate the nerve, and they go into a recording amplifier. And you play that back like your tongue has hundreds of holes on it. And when you eat bacon and eggs, it falls into that hole in your tongue. And on the bottom of the hole is a nerve. The bacon and eggs titillate that nerve a certain way. From the nerve ending to the brain, that's bacon and eggs. So if you learn what the titillation is of this nerve, you can play anything, steak, any taste, into any food anybody eats. So it's just a matter of a few years with nanotechnology. The world will be a far different place. They won't even record us in our history books. We're so fucked up. Won't make
They
a
won't
history.
remember.
And that TED Talk,
It's a terrible society, but being brought up in it, it seems, hey, this is the greatest country in the world. A lot of people say, why can't people live in peace and harmony? That's so simple. How do you do that? So you have to know how to go to another country, and when they see you, they don't think you're there to exploit their resources. So you have to undo all that. Like when I was in Dubai, I was talking to a member of the prince's family, and I said to him, I don't like our president one bit. I think he's dangerous. I'm talking about Bush. Extremely dangerous man, and I don't vote for him at all. And he said this, if I get Bush, I'd cut him to pieces. Well, you never knew that. They said that's our friends in Dubai. They're not our friends. They need us for certain things. But I would say the world is pretty much against the United States. If you really, that's why I said that. I want to know where it was. When I went to China, I tried to talk to people about how do you feel about U.S. armament. That's when I got the bit about controlling the electronic systems. I said, instead of building a big army, although they're building a big army in rockets, their real aim is to make good electrical engineers and computer technicians to jam military systems. So all submarines, all aircraft characters depend on computers. So if you learn to jam that, you can wipe out the country. You can wipe out all production systems, everything else. So you don't spend your money. It's just a lot of money on aircraft and aircraft carriers and submarines. The submarines roll over $1 billion apiece. So if you use $1 billion in electronics, or 20 billion, you conquer the world. You see, now if China wins, they will enslave the world for a period until technology evolves. because the leaders of China are not technicians, they're politicians, unfortunately. And technicians tend to think that politicians know what they're doing. They're politicians, we're technicians. They think that one is just as good as the other. You're a musician, he's a farmer, I'm an electrical engineer. It's the electrical engineer and the agronomist that can grow a lot of food, not the farmer. You know what I mean? We don't know in government what is important, and the Bush administration dissolved the Scientific Advisory Board to the government. You know that? The man is a puppet of the establishment. Bush, real stupid guy. But Cheney is not very bright either. All these people are very dangerous. But there's nothing I can say except the system has to fall. And they will push anything liberal out and make up any stories. I could say he's a child molester. Get that rumor out there. If you get the rumor out there, it'll discredit you, whether you did it or not. Do you understand? Spread false rumors, and that'll come with the Venus Project. It isn't important enough yet, not that well fortified yet, for the rumors to start out.
That's what Alex Jones is trying to do.
What's that?
Alex Jones.
That guy's so stupid.
Alex Jones?
Yeah.
Alex Jones.
Yeah,
He's a moron.
Make up all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, he said the Luciferian.
He asked me to be on the show,
Right after
and I
PJ was
refused
on.
it.
That was a joke.
Did you see that?
Oh, it's completely ridiculous.
He acted like a child. The whole
Oh
time.
yeah.
What did he say?
He acted like
He
a
just
monkey.
threw a tantrum and was just attacking Peter Joseph and oh, you're bubble-headed, intelligent, blah blah
He
blah.
wouldn't even listen. He was jumping around.
He said
like
it was
an
a
idiot.
satanic theosophical cult.
Cult?
Yeah. Venus is the morning.
Synonymous with Satan. I'm like, it's in Venus, Florida. You fucking
Is he wealthy?
He does a lot of outrageous conspiracy theory type things.
He makes
Really
fun of
crazy things.
Oh yeah, how can we get rid of them?
Is he a god?
That's what I want to know.
Is he religious?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, very. He's got a very large following of
Alex
Christian.
Jones.
With a capital B.
I'll tell you.
Well, what I do is,
We got lots of time.
with religious people, when they come here, if they're a priest, and I say, I would wear that cross if I were you. I said, why not? They always say the same thing. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, sacrificed him. I said, according to the witnesses, Jesus arose and went back into heaven, so there's no sacrifice. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Then I said, why not? Why shouldn't I wear the cross? I said, because that's what man did to Christ. It has nothing to do with his teachings. They used to crucify people that criticized the government and establishment. So if you wear that around your neck, it's what man did to Christ. So he says, you've confused me. So I said, suppose your brother was accused of raping and murdering a female, and they hung him. 10 years later, they find out he did nothing like that. Are you going to wear a noose with your brother hanging from it? You got the message.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, they don't put anything together. The Bible is one batch of contradictions. For example, just before they crucified Christ, they told me that God was omnipotent, knew everything, made every galaxy, every bug, every planet. So just before they crucified Christ, he looked up and he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. As though God would, gee, thanks for telling me that. I don't know that. That's an insult to deity. But the people who read the Bible don't seem to put those things together. In fact, they don't seem to put anything together. So what I do is say that the church sold out to the monetary system. It honors people that are wealthy, where Christ would have chased them out. Said, if you have any more money than you need to live, give it to the poor. A rich man asked him, can I enter the kingdom of heaven? He said, oh, the same chance a camel has going to the eye of a needle. And we worship all the rich people today. They're all on high places. And I've heard nothing dumber than this guy that puts up big buildings and sells. What's his name?
Donald Trump?
You're thinking of Trump.
What's his name?
Yeah, Trump.
Trump. Donald is a real asshole. No information at all. And they got him on TV and has nothing to say. Military men have nothing to say, except we need more cannons and more rockets and things like that. They have nothing new to say. And all the people they interview on TV are people usually that are pro-establishment. So it isn't a democracy unless you have different points of view. And with different points of view, you're going to produce confusion in this country. A lot of riots, people will be shooting other people. Unfortunately, they don't know how to solve problems. When I was a kid, all we had was cowboys with 2 guns. They never solved problems. They shot the disagreement. And I got rid of them. And all blacks were always seen running away from ghosts in all the movies. And Mexicans sleeping in the sun under their big sunroof. Lazy sun sleepers. And our movies were about Italian gangsters only.
Yeah.
And there were all kinds of Irish gangsters before them. After the Italian gangsters, there was a new lot gang, Jewish gangsters. So we have Irish gangsters, all different types, which isn't shown on television. We should show, or we can, but in our movie, we show a lot of stuff. The little girl says to her daddy, you've explained it very well, she says, are we going to Grandma's house this afternoon? And Daddy says, yes. And the little girl says, does she still live in that old house? He says, yes. Why? Well, maybe she has pleasant associations with it. And Grandma's house is one of those cable suspended things. Oh, beautiful, awful precedents. You know, fantastic architecture. But let's just get the audience. Hey, she's old-fashioned. She doesn't update her house every 5 years like everyone else does. See, so it's not a fixed society. So the kid looks at the house as old-fashioned. But the audience will look at it as light years ahead. And we show a lot of stuff in the home of the future. We show how all energy conserved, how buildings have no termites, no dust, because the air pressure in the building is just a little higher than outside, so no dust ever comes in. And then we show electrostatic air filters in the building that take out, so you don't have to cover your mouth when you sneeze, and most diseases will be taken care of differently.
We already do that in operating rooms. There's no reason we can't do them everywhere.
You know why we don't. So anyway, there's so much to be done. And so much, when people say, well, machines do all the dirty work, what will people do? Children will travel, scuba diving, sailing boats, and studying, and going to school free of charge, and have craft shops, machine shops to make anything you want to make. When you submit your stuff to the government computers, it'll say that we don't have enough information to make a decision, but you can go to this lab and have it tested. Suppose you have good ideas, social ideas, but you're a hunchback and you lisp when you speak. People don't think you're smart. Normal people are very dangerous. So we take ideas from people, and we have the best voices in the country read the project. They vote on it. There's a little guy in a wheelchair that can't move. You understand? Because you don't have objective viewing. You view the personality speaking. So there's so many things to do. You know, unfortunately, we will send people trained in the Venus Project to Africa to talk to Afro-Americans or Africans, because they don't like Whitey. What the hell is he doing there? You know what I mean? Whitey comes to make our life better. What bullshit. We will have Arabs address the Arab nations. There are many Arabs that come here that we can talk to that already learned about it. We have Frenchmen that are writing about it. So that's the best way to go at it. Don't send a blonde area where all the girls have very black hair. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work. People look at you and they judge what you say by their past experiences. You can't do that. So you're dealing with sick people, and our job is social therapy, not reason. I want to emphasize that, not reason. I brought a Japanese kid home one day. How many notice? And my mother said loud enough, I don't want that kind around. And he said, all right, so long, Jacque. And I try to reason with my mother. He says, let us sit and reason together in good books. Use science and reason. It didn't work at all. So my mother rejected him, and I said, if I can't change my mother, how am I going to change the world? So I said to my mother, I was swimming in the East River. This is not true. And Masato worked on the boat, and I was drowning because there's a high wall. I couldn't get ashore, and he threw a lifesaver to me. She said, my God, you mean he saved your life? I said, yeah. He said, oh, I was so rude to him. I said, please, ask him to come for dinner. I want to beg him to forgive me. So I said, I don't know if he'll do that. She said, please, Jacque, I haven't read you it. I wanted her to do that. So I said, Masato, when you come in the door, she's going to hug you and kiss you and maybe even be weeping about how she treated you. I said, expect that. So she did it. She grabbed him, but at dinner she's really talking to him, really. So I walked out and came back about 20 minutes or so later when Masato went to the washroom. I don't know how long it's been, but anyway, I said to my mother, what do you think? She said, you know, he's just like you and I. So I said, yeah, but he's a member of the Yellow Race. So I went like that. She says, you shouldn't do that. He saved your life. I said, but he's still a member of the Yellow Race. And she's arguing with me. The reason I did that is to get her to think of all the other arguments. And she did. And a month later, she liked Masato. Really did. Always put her arm around him and calls him son. That's really liking him. And me at the same time. So,
Did she ever find out that your story?
Yes. Once that was established, I said, Mother, he never saved my life. She said, you little devil, I would have never opened the door. But she was glad I did that. But, you know, you can only do so much. But reason doesn't work on some people. You have to always tell them the truth. Always told my mother exactly what I did. But I could not reason with her. Her brain shut down on that. You know, so I found out the hard way. I used reason. And in all the scientific books on language, it says, be honest, explain things as it truly is. It doesn't work that way. The real world is very different. I used to know a gangster that wanted to get laid a lot, and Woolworth's Five and Dime had engagement rings that sold for 10 cents a piece. They looked like the expensive rings. And he bought a whole batch and would give it to a girl, get laid, and oh, you shouldn't have done that. So, and anyway, they were impressed. They felt he really loved her. He really didn't. He just wanted to get laid. He used devices like that. And then I met another guy that worked with Al Capone. And he came to see me because he had a problem. I said, well, what's your problem? If you don't tell me what it is, I can't help you. He says, I have 2 Rolls Royces, and I like to drive them through Boogie Town, meaning black environment, and watch all those kids look at my Rolls Royce as I drove around slowly. I go around the block several times. It makes me feel good. So why do I do that? I said, because when you were a kid, you were looking at a guy driving a fancy car, and he got so much esteem from the people looking at him, he wanted to feel that. I said, you're that same asshole. I said that to him. He said, nobody ever called me that. I said, well, I'm telling you what you are. You throw big parties on your yacht, have a lot of people come, a lot of girls, a lot of sex. They're not your friends. They're people taking advantage of your economic situation. He said, nobody ever said that to me. Well, I'm saying it to you. So I said, that's why you drive your car around, that's why you throw the parties, because you have no self-sufficiency. He says, yeah, what can I do about it? I said, you have to read. I gave him certain books. Then he came back 2 months later. He says, I can't talk to my friends anymore. I said, that's part of the problem. The more you learn about this system, the more distant you become from people. That's why I ask you to talk to people, break them in. If you don't do that, you'll just drift away and you do nothing useful.
I've noticed that
and if the system you use doesn't work, change it, come at it another way. That's what I did with my mother and other people. And when I spoke at Columbia University in New York, one of the professors got up and said, would you use profanity if your mother were here? I use profanity, obviously. So I said, Mother, will you stand up? I took care of that. So try to fortify your answers to these questions, you know. Okay, guys. Go to work. We work all the time. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, no vacation. We work because the thing is going downhill, and I'm afraid of the future human race. So we can't take time out to hope it'll all work out by itself. It won't. I only see it a form of fascism, an American brand. They're trying to install it now. Fascism means severe control and rigidity and privatization of everything. So I hope there's nobody that's angry here for anything I said. Anybody, did you learn anything today?
So much.
You raised your hand?
Pearls of wisdom.
Okay. As long as you got something useful. Yes. Okay. I wanted to explain one of the books that you are using is this one. Called The Best That Money Can't Buy. It's about a moneyless society. Okay, this is the government. Halfway they go into all the pictures of the objects you've seen. And cities in the sea, it covers the city as a system, the government, transportation, and near the end you have offshore living, and you have floating domes, and then the Venus Fly, what we've done out here. Now, we don't own the helicopter that you see here. People fly in, they drop in literally with helicopters in front of another dome building. So the book is, when you get the book and you're through reading it, put it in a school library or somewhere so other people can get it. And call up different stations, ask them to present the Venus Project. You're tired of hearing military people and Americans that don't know anything else but force. You want to know if there's any other way of doing it. There are many other ways of doing it. So,
Are there any other questions?
The other takes an animal.
I have a question. Jacque was talking about, you mentioned that for your next phase you want to get this movie made.
Yes.
Do you have like a plan laid
Yeah, we
out?
have I'll tell you a little bit about the script. Just a little bit about it.
But I'm saying like an overall plan from here to there, like here are the steps, or here's like a diagram, something we can download or work off of.
I can't release that until you get a guy like Spielberg to come out here.
You're talking about the different steps from here. That
If
it
you know
really doesn't.
anybody in the film business, this film will make a lot of money for the money people, but we want a small portion of it to go to the Venus Project, because that's the only way.
It really doesn't depend on us, because we don't have money, we don't have power. It depends on what everybody else does. It depends on who they introduce us to. You know, we've tried a lot. We keep going. We work around the clock. So we have steps of what to do and things to do, but we don't have the power to do it. So it depends on what everybody else does to introduce us. So more people get into it. Maybe somebody can do the movie. If we can do the movie, then we can reach a lot of people. So you know, we have lots of things we could do, but we don't have methods to do them. We don't have funding to do them.
But do you understand what I'm saying? If you're thinking in terms of like the larger movement, right? You two are here, you're doing this, you're hoping to do the movie, and I'm thinking that's like one part of a much larger plan. Is there a much larger plan?
Yeah, that's what all this is. That's what all this is, technically, how to do it, what to do. Yes.
Build and demonstrate how a city would work.
After the film, we want to show at the end of the film that we want to show that we're breaking ground, hopefully, and then have people come and join us. And the first city would be a research city. It wouldn't be someplace where people could come and retire nicely. It would be a research facility where the people there would be doing the designs for the next city, and we'd be doing books and videos and material to get this out there, and we'd have a theme park of the future where people could come and walk out and be smarter after they go through that city. I mean, that theme park. and then we have people come from all over the world, and then build the next city and the next city in different countries. So we have all sorts of plans, and we have all sorts of technology to back it up, and all sorts of prints. And the movie's not just a movie; it's a plan of action, and a social therapy at the same time for the transition to make it easier. Otherwise, it's just going to be chaos and fascism, and they don't know where to go after that. So all this is the plan.
I see a lot of trouble ahead unless we work at it. So I think it'll happen in Europe first, because they're much better informed than we are.
Yeah, they're on the renewable.
We've got too much managed news to control people. In Europe, they're more skeptical and they're more open to ideas. Because their long history of war and pain and suffering, we've never had that.
Yeah.
Just a shame that it takes time. There's no way I can press it. Unless I meet the guy with the cigar. Just let's do it. There are people in that position, like a guy named Skouras, is that his name, Skouras? A Greek fellow.
Yes.
A guy like that, he gives all kinds of money to universities, and Roxanne and I build everything here.
I'm not sure. I'm
if we
probably
had
wrong
support,
about that.
we'd be able to go forward very fast.
Time wouldn't be as big.
Because we know exactly what to do, phase by phase.
Yeah, we haven't met anybody who will help finance it. I mean, we've been financing it ourselves through outside work, our outside jobs for the last 30 years.
Financed the Zeki, right?
Yeah, somebody gave
a millionaire came out
$250,000
here
to Zeki.
and he said to me, I think I told you, if you're so smart, how come you're not rich? And I said, you're rich, how come you're not smart? So he said he's going to have a guy film my life and what I do. And the guy left out all the social stuff of the film. He didn't want to rock the boat. And the guy that put up the money, he asked the filmmaker, Gazeki, he said, how much would it take to make a film on Jacque? And the guy said, $350,000, is it?
Yeah.
And he gave him a check for half the amount, and then he gave him the rest when he
If we
finished
had
it.
that funding, we could have done a great film.
But we had no part in that.
Yeah.
But I just want you
You
to know
really
what
didn't
he
understand
did.
this direction.
So I asked him, I said, why are you putting up the money for this film? Do you care about people? He said, no, I don't give a shit about people. I give a shit about you will make me a lot of money. I just want you to know that.
That's all Zeki said.
No, the
reason
person who
for the
backed
guy
Zeki.
putting up the money. He did it as a business venture.
Yeah.
Peter Joseph.
Did the best job.
Peter Joseph.
Curious.
Did Zeitgeist. They said, all right, what can we do about it? So the system's dead. He says he didn't know. Until Roxanne sent him one of our books. And he flew out here right away and he shot for days. And the Venus Project addendum, it was partly about the Venus Project, but the next one's all about the Venus Project.
Well, no, it's going to be more about, he's going to interview a lot of people and he's going to try and make it mainstream, but it's going to be a lot more on the Venus Project.
He's a very nice guy, very flexible, not rigid, He was brought up as a Catholic, but evolved out of that.
Me too.
Okay. Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Been sober for 6 years.
Very hard. I asked Einstein once whether he believed in God. He said, which one? And he wrote the foreword to the book called Man and His Gods. Did you know that?
No.
People think he believes in God. He wrote the foreword to that book. That book is about how one religion influenced another, the whole story. Man and His Gods by Homer W. Smith. That'll be on the website. On our website, you can find a whole list of books. So I'll send you guys underway, and we'll get back to work. You can pick up your tapes, Roxanne.